Well, good evening, class. And this is the video for Lesson 9.1, and we are going to start off into the next chapter. Now, Chapter 9 is all about things relating to spatial stuff. So we're talking geometry. So we're going to start with basic metric measuring units, one for length, one for capacity, and one for mass. Those are the three different kinds of things that we can measure. How long something is, how much liquid, for instance, something holds, that's the capacity. And then mass, we think of mass more as weight, but what weight really is, as you'll learn in science class, is it's gravity pulling on your mass. That's why you weigh less on the moon. It's not like you have any less molecules making up your body. It's just gravity's not pulling on you as hard. And so anyway, so that's what we're going to start with. Then we're going to move through a lot of different geometric objects. We're going to talk about perimeters and areas. With respect to circles, we'll call that circumference and area. And then we're also going to move into some three-dimensional objects. And we're going to talk about the outside surface area and also the volume it would take to fill those objects up. All right, but before we get started, let's start on this opening screen. I don't normally start teaching on the screen, but in this case I'm going to. So let's talk about length, capacity, and mass. So length, we're talking about how long something is. And so we've got three basic units in the metric system. Okay, and some people remember them by the initials God loves me. You remember them. If that's not your cup of tea, you can remember them with gun loves math, or whatever phrase you want to remember with the letters G, L, and M. Okay. Now the L is capitalized because if it weren't, it would look like the number 1, and we always capitalize L. And let's talk about which one goes with which. Okay, so let's start with G, the first one. That stands for gram, and that is the basic metric unit when we're measuring mass. Okay, for capacity, it's liter, and for length, it's meter. Okay. Now we all know that a meter is about a yard length, a yard in length, and then we can modify the word meter. If we want to talk about smaller pieces of a meter, like centimeters and millimeters, we can do that with prefixes that we put in front of meter. And then if we want to talk about a lot of meters, like measuring how far it is from here to, say, Cincinnati, we could measure in kilometers or kilometers. Okay, we can do the same thing with liter. So a lot of liters, we could talk about a kiloliter. If we're talking about really small amounts, we could talk about centiliter or milliliter. And the same thing with gram. Now there's other metric prefixes as well, and we'll talk about those a little bit more in lesson 9.2. Okay, so in terms of talking about things, let's talk about these basic units really quickly. Okay, so let's say that this is 1 meter. Okay, and like I said, a meter is about, it's just a little bit taller than a yard, so it's probably about the height of, say, a garbage can, okay, or a fire hydrant. It's probably just a little bit smaller than, okay, that's not a very good fire hydrant, but there we go, okay. It's probably just a little bit less than a meter, okay. The width of a door is about a meter, okay. The height of a door is probably about 2 or a little bit more than 2 meters. Okay, so that's what a meter is. And of course, if I do centimeter, which we of course abbreviate cm, then we're talking about something that's much smaller, kind of like the width of a dime. Okay, that's about a centimeter. And a millimeter is even smaller, and that'd be about like the thickness of a penny. Okay, oh, or a dime. All right, so those are all length units, and again, in length terms, our basic unit is going to be meter, and we can modify it, and I guess I should talk about the big one, a kilometer. That's going to be 1,000 meters, and that's basically about 6/10 of a mile. Okay, so all right, so in length, we're going to use the term meter. Okay, for capacity, that's how much liquid fills something up. Okay, so we're talking about liquid like in a bucket, and we'd probably measure that in just straight liters. Okay, if we're talking about the liquid in a test tube, okay, that would probably be measured in either centiliters, depending on, oops, sorry, that was just not very good. Depending on how big the test tube is, it could be measured in centiliters, or it could be measured, if it's smaller, in milliliters. Okay, and then if something really large, like a big oil drum, that would probably be measured in kiloliters. And again, notice, like I said before, that the liters is always capitalized. And again, this is measures of capacity. And again, our main unit is going to be liters. And then finally, if we're measuring how much something weighs, we're going to measure in the mass is what we're really measuring, and we're going to measure that in grams. Okay, and so something like a dime weighs a number of grams. Let's say it weighs about 1 or 2 grams. Okay. whereas a brick that you use to build walls or build the school out of, okay, probably weighs probably 1 to 2 kilograms, which is the same as 1,000 to 2,000 grams. Okay, and I don't know exactly why I spelled brick like that. Let me fix that. I was thinking ahead a little bit too far. And then something that is really small, like let's say we take one single tissue out of a tissue box. Okay, that's going to number a number of milligrams. Another thing we measure in milligrams, we see that sometimes in food when we're measuring out how much vitamin something has. If we measure how much medicine is in a little Advil tablet, and keep in mind a lot of it is just filler, but the actual medicine component of an Advil tablet is usually about 200 milligrams. Okay, so we're talking really small amounts, and we could also talk about centigrams as well, although we don't that often. Okay, now here's what you need to learn in this unit. You're going to need to know, if I give you something like a tree, okay, what unit would you use to measure its height? Well, that would make sense. That would be meters, right? Now, let's say I cut it all down and I want to take all the wood and I want to measure how much mass or how much that weighs. Well, then I'm going to be measured in kilograms. Okay? If I took just one, let's say it's a pine tree, and I just took one little branch, one little needle piece, and I wanted to weigh that, well, that I'd probably weigh in grams. Okay, and it probably would weigh 20 to 30 grams if I'm just talking about one little, like 3-4 inch needle section. Okay, if I wanted to measure how much sap came out of the tree, let's say this isn't a pine tree, but let's say it's a sugar maple tree, and I put one of those buckets on the side to collect sap. Okay, and over the course of a winter, actually over the course of a fall, I measure how much capacity, how much sap comes out of this big sugar maple tree, and that will probably be measured in liters if I don't tap it for very long, or possibly if I had several trees and I was tapping like a whole wooded area, it might even be measured in kiloliters. So kind of just deciding how big units are is going to be a big part of this unit. And that's what we're going to practice in class. So when we do chapter or section 9.1, we're going to practice just getting a feel for how small a milligram is, how small is a gram, how big is a kilogram. And the same thing for meter. We're going to start with how small is a millimeter, centimeter, up to a meter, up to a kilometer. And then finally the same thing with liters. Okay? And then we'll do another lesson, and that'll be tomorrow night's video, on how to convert from one type of unit to another. So if I want to convert from something like centimeters into meters, or from meters into kilometers. And we'll learn that there's actually a really cool and simple trick to do that. So thanks for watching. I'm not going to keep you long tonight. Remember, your homework is to watch this video and also to finish any part of that 1 through 6 review packet you were working on in class on Friday and Monday. And I will see you all in class tomorrow. Thank you very much for watching.